All right, there we go. I see it's popped up. Oh, need to mute that.
I know. I just remembered to mute it too.
All right, so welcome to our Ella Enchanted live stream or discussion of the first in our post Artemis Fowl read along phase. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I haven't hosted these in so long, and I love this book so much. I'm like really nervous. Like, I don't know what to say. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we should just dive right into it. We are cutting this at like 6 p.m. my time, like in 45. Yeah, I guess in 50 minutes. So I guess let's jump in. Hi, Keisha. So, I guess general thoughts of the book is how we should start. Who wants to go first?
I can go. It's weird. I remember this book as being one of my top favorites when I was young, but for some reason on Goodreads, I had given it a 4-star, and reading it again as an adult, I would still give it a 4-star. There's a lot that I like. This is a fantastic book, and I flew through it. I felt like some of the 90s feminism really sort of got to me. There was a little bit of Not Like Other Girls that I really didn't enjoy, and there was a lot of like, it was kind of a little more mean-spirited than I remember it being. There's a lot of like, ugly is bad, fat is bad, skinny and pretty are good, and I don't know, I didn't really remember that being part of it, and it's not a huge part, but other than that, I really loved the main character. I loved, oh, did we lose Kara?
Yeah, she just popped out. I don't know why.
Oh. I'll keep going. I loved Prince Shar. I liked their relationship. I thought it was really genuine and cute. And I really liked the sort of magic system. I did feel like the sort of languages thing was a little lazier than I remember it being. I didn't like how language was just sort of splattered on the page. I don't know. That was a little aesthetically unpleasing for me. But other than that, I love this book, and I still really loved it reading it as an adult. So.
Oh, she's back. Sorry, I can add her. Hey,
there we go.
How are you? My computer.
I just wrapped up. If you want to go ahead.
Sure. Sorry about that. My computer just decided to, I don't know, do something. Yeah. So I heard a lot of what Taylor was saying before that happened, and I feel like I have similar feelings. I had also given the book a 4 stars, and like from when I had read it before, and I think a big part of the reason for me is that this was not actually the first Gail Carson Levine book I fell in love with. The one that I remember really loving is Two Princesses of Bamar. And so I think I read Ella Enchanted after it. And just because it was obviously not the same story, I think I was a little disappointed, which was kind of a silly way to rate books, but I was like 9, so it's fine. But I do remember really loving this one. And I think I also noticed a lot of the language about like ugly is bad or like fat is bad. Like all of the unpleasant characters are mentioned, like how much they weigh or how fat they are, and so that was something I noticed I think a lot more this time. But I think the main reason I gave it 4 stars instead of 5, besides that, is there's a lot about this book that is really frustrating and upsetting to read, and it's a little unfair of me to say that because it's supposed to be. Like, I think you're supposed to feel like Ella does. You know, you just want her to be able to do what she wants to do instead of being at the mercy of everyone else. But like, I was thinking about how sometimes when I have favorite books, there's like that one scene that I always hate reading when I reread it. And I feel like with Ella Enchanted, even though I love so much of the book, there's like 3 scenes like that. Like there's like so much bullying that is so hard to read. Like the way that Hattie and Olive, well, especially Hattie, treat her, like when she takes her mother's necklace from her, and like the part where her mom dies, like right at the beginning, just enrages me every time because I just want to yell at her, like, why didn't you eat the soup?
Or why didn't Mandy tell her?
Yeah, and it's just like such an irresponsible thing for a mother to do. I think, you know, like to like not take care of yourself the way you would take care of your kid. It's like part of taking care of your family, I think, is you know, being kind to yourself in addition to just being good to take care of yourself. And then the part where she has to, like, I guess we can talk about spoilers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then like the part where she has to break up with Char and he hates her for like a couple chapters. Like, obviously it works out, but I hate reading that. So I think that's one of the reasons why I gave it 4 instead of 5, just because I have all of these like, not pet peeves, but like these personal, like these very like visceral reactions to those scenes where it's like I dread rereading those parts every time I reread this book, even though I really like it. But on the positive side, like I love Ella, I love Char, I really like the world and how Gail Carson Levine, how she writes fantasy. And it's still like a very enjoyable book. I feel like I talked a lot about the things I didn't like, but I obviously really loved it because I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, so I think I did really enjoy it. I still don't love it as much as Two Princesses, which is in a way I'm kind of relieved that we're not reading that one because it's like, what if I don't love it the same way the second or however many times I've read it? But yeah, I do really like this book. And I'm done.
Okay, so that's me. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know. I've read this book like probably over 20 times at least. Like I used to read it just like endlessly as a kid. And well, I guess yeah, like I would agree with Kara that there are some parts that are like hard to read that are like very like upsetting. I feel like because like the book is so fast and like nothing is ever dwelt on for very long, like it's easy to get through. Unlike some scenes in other books, like where it's like, oh, I don't like this part of the book, I'm gonna skip 50 pages. Where it's like this, you just skip like 4 or 5, and then it's just like such a small scenes. But and I did quickly want to address like I do agree that a lot of the like messages in this is like there is a lot of like the comparing somebody's personality to their weight, but yet Mandy is also fat and not attractive. So I don't think it's 100%.
Yeah.
But it's definitely still not a good message. It's not justifying it, but also there is a character who is not your typical like beauty standards and who is like one of the best like people in her life, like the best person in her life once her mother is dead. So sorry, it's M says I haven't reread this, but it was one of her favorites as a kid. And Chris loved it a couple years ago when he read it. Yeah, I made him read it with me in 2016 and he really liked it. He was like, wow, I like books that are happy to read and not just really depressing. And I'm like, yeah. Although this does have some depressing things in it. Going back to my thoughts on it though, I just love how, I don't know, I love being in Ella's head and seeing her just struggle so much and her like not being able to like have that free will and like but she never like gives up, and even from like the beginning she's constantly fighting it, and she talks about like how every time like Mandy would give her an order she would like disobey it as much as possible and stuff. And I love that she's so like feisty from the beginning and she like never gives that up, and she never like gives up because I feel like I don't know, like so many other people, probably including myself, would be like, after a while, you just like give up because it's so exhausting. She's like, I had to keep going and pushing against it. And I like love seeing that. And I also love how the majority of the book is just based on her and her growing and her life and her story. And it's not just a romance. And like, it is a romance, and that's definitely more focused on at the end. But even the romance is like so like sweet and so like genuine, and then that they're just like really good friends and love grows out of that. And I just like think that's like so like wholesome to read. And like even like jumping to the very very end when he's like I know like marriage is forever, but like friendship can be forever too. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that is like that's so pure. So anyway, I just feel like there's so many just wonderful messages in it, and I just honestly just like adored and ate up like every second of it. So because those are my general thoughts. So I guess moving on to like more specific things, I guess we can talk about like Ella and what we thought of her. I kind of just like talk about that, like how I love how like confident and bold and everything she is. She's very brave and very sarcastic and very witty, and I just love everything about her. She's perfect. But what do you guys think?
I love her. I absolutely love her. And I think there's something really nice about seeing a heroine who doesn't fight her way out of things physically. She doesn't like need to pick up a sword. She's very smart. And I like that she relies a lot on her intelligence, like outsmarting the ogres, trying to outsmart just people in her daily life who try to order her around by finding like workarounds. You know, the fact that she reads constantly. I think that's a very good message for little girls about, you know, the value of intelligence. I also really like her relationship with Char and how. Sorry. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My headphones just died.
Oh,
Awesome.
no.
Tech is really working for me today. So I like her relationship with Char, and I like that she's the funny one in the relationship. You don't see that a lot with couples, so I really like that she takes on the sort of funnier, not goofier per se, but she's very witty sort of role in that relationship. So I love her so much. She's so precious.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked Ella too, for all the reasons that you guys were saying. And I also like how she's very, like you were saying, she's very like feisty and outspoken, and she'll stand up for people. But she's not in that very like very typical kind of strong girl heroine way where it's like she'll get herself into trouble for no reason just because she's being sassy. You know, like that's something that really frustrates me, and I don't feel like Ella did that. I feel like when she does talk back to people, it's for something that she believes in. You know, it's not just like, I don't know, like kind of going back to this idea of like 90s feminism, you know, it's like where like every female character had to like backtalk to people who could have them like executed or something, you know, like she's very like she doesn't censor herself. She's very outspoken, but it's not in a way that feels like, I don't know, kind of performative, I guess. Like it feels very true to who she is. And I also love that she has that, and then she also has this incredibly good heart. Like she is so kind. Like the way she takes in Arita, and she like looks out for her because she knows the other girls pick on her, and it's like Ella's going through some horrible things too, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't view other people's problems as being meaningful. And the fact that she sacrifices her own happiness for the good of the person that she cares about and for her country. Like that part, like I don't remember how I felt about it before, but rereading it this time, that part where like she tells Mandy what she did and Mandy calls her lady for the first time, I just like it just really got me in the heart this time. And yeah, I really like Ella a lot actually.
She is the best. Okay. I just love her. And then I guess we can talk about Char since they're so closely connected. I like that he's not in the book very much. And I love that their relationship really grows out of like writing each other letters. Uh, I've written tons of letters to tons of friends, like, and that's always something that like I always really enjoyed growing up. And looking back, a lot of it was probably actually spurred by this book, that like seeing their correspondence. Then I started writing letters, and like I used to write like 2 or 3 letters a week to like 1 or 2 of my friends specifically, and we were literally like writing each other, getting it, writing back, and sending it back, and like we did that. Like I have like 2 big like shoe boxes like stuffed full of letters from like my friend and stuff, and I just like love that they're talking about, I don't know, other things, and that their like relationship with each other isn't like the important thing, that they're really getting to know each other, getting to know each other's personalities. They're talking about like politics and the economy and like all these like other things. And even though we're not like being read every single boring detail about everything and all the stuff, like it still keeps it like kid friendly, and like it's still like, but there's, you still know that they're talking about it. And I but then you still get to actually do read a lot of their correspondence, and I just like love that so much of their relationship was built through that, because it just feels so like genuine. And I just love all their relationships. And like I love the part at like her dad's wedding, like that whole scene just makes me so happy. And
Yeah.
them just like spending that time together and exploring together. It's like there's still definitely like in that like very like teenager like starting to turn into adult phase at that point, and they're like, let's like knock on every door and like knock on all the walls and like try to find secret passages and stuff. It's just like so wholesome and sweet and like swinging down the banister and stuff. And I love the scene at the very end where he's like spinning her and then like sees her dad and he's like, oh crap. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like love everything about them. And I already said, like I love like Char's like when he's like, we can still be friends and stuff, like even though I don't like care about you that way and stuff, like when she's pretending to be oh gosh, what's her name?
Leela
or something.
Here we go. Anyway, I just really adore it.
Yeah. I really like their relationship too. And Char is just, he's just like so wholesome, like you said. He's just like the most unproblematic love interest. And I love him. He's just so good. And I like the way it's developed through letters. And it's funny because I think, Giselle, you mentioned this earlier. I was really struck this time by how little he is in the book, like compared to what Ella's doing and what she's going through, and even some of the other characters. Like I think she has, well, I guess this makes sense because her and Mandy live at the same place, but like she has more scenes with Mandy than she does with Char. But I really love their interactions, and I'm just so impressed by how invested I got in their relationship when they do have so few interactions, and it still feels so believable. And like rereading it this time, because I did reread this book a lot, but I don't remember the last time I did read it. And I remembered their exchange of letters, and I remembered that the way like Char finally tells her how he feels, just kind of like out of the blue, after they've been exchanging letters for a while, but I didn't remember when that happened. And so I get to that letter and I'm like, oh my God, it's already like, this is already happening. But it's still, even though it felt quick, as soon as I read that, I'm like, yeah, I can see how they're already in love, or how he already loves her. And she's like well on her way to falling in love with him. Because I think the book even says it's like she realized she was completely in love with him when she was able to give him up. So yeah, I love their whole relationship. And the like proposal scene at the end, like that was one of the scenes that like was sort of like imprinted on my brain, just like not just the proposal part, but like when Ella breaks the curse, like I remember even like specific phrases that the book used, and like I remember who was standing where, and like exactly the sequence of events for Ella, like when she like I don't know, that part just made me like super emotional this time, and I don't remember it affecting me quite that way before. But like where she's like really calm, because she suddenly realizes like I've been worried about the choice I have to make, and there's no choice. Like I can't do this, and like that's what breaks the curse. And it's just like everything about those two, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's such a good I guess example of relationships to young readers, because everyone loves a good hate to love romance. I love it too, but I like that they start off as friends and they build a foundation as friends first. And so by the time they fall in love, you can see like everything, like the foundations being laid. And I like that they make each other laugh, which is so, so important. And it's so cute. And that they have fun together. It's not always like angsting. Yeah. And I also like that they don't spend a long time pining for each other. Like, one day Char's just like, you know what, I'm gonna tell her. And he just lets her know. And it's not, I don't know, I felt it was done in a very mature way, just how the relationship was portrayed. And I think it's such a good example. And Char is so, so good. I love him so much. And I think he's also a really good love interest for Ella, because other than Mandy, he's one of the, and Mandy and what's her friend's name? Arita. Like there aren't a lot of people out there who are kind to her. And I think it's so important that kindness was at the center, like it was the center of his character. And I love that for her.
Yeah, love it. I also
love that for her.
I love the fact that he basically falls in love with her twice, because like when she's disguised at the ball, and I know it's not the same thing, and he basically he wants them to be friends, but he's like reacting to her a lot of the same ways that he did when he knew she was Ella. And I just love that. Like it really, I feel like for me it really drove home like these two people are like so perfect for each other. They're so good for each other that like even when they don't know it's the other person, they find each other, and they like, I don't know, they know that they're important to each other, and even if in one sense it might be like a friendship way versus how they knew each other before. Like I just love that. It's like it's great.
Just talking about this book makes me so happy. And thinking about it also. I guess let's move on to talking about Lucinda. Keisha brought up that she feels like Lucinda should just be barred from giving gifts. Like no one wants them, from her at least. But if she didn't, there wouldn't have been a story. Yeah, I do feel like. Sorry, does that someone else want to go first, or should I just plow on?
I mean, all I say is that the fairy should have Julius Caesared Lucinda by this point. Like, she is way too dangerous.
Think of how many deaths and like ruined lives she probably led to.
Yeah, cost-benefit analysis of Lucinda.
Yeah.
Doesn't it say though that the fairies are immortal? So I don't even know if she can be killed. Doesn't Lucinda say that? I'm not Lucinda. Doesn't Mandy say that to Ella like right at the beginning when like her mom dies, and she's like, "This is the reaction that your mom had when her dad died," but like fairies are immortal, and she was like really mad at me about that.
I thought that meant kind of like the sense they usually use it in, where like they can be killed through non-natural means, but if you don't do anything to them, they'll live forever, kind of thing.
Maybe. I don't know. It's never really addressed. But who knows? It's one of the mysteries.
I'm gonna have to change location really quick, but you guys can keep talking and I'll be right back. I think I can just say stop camera and it'd be fine, but we're gonna find out, okay?
Okay.
Sorry about this.
No, you're fine. So as far as like Lucinda goes, I do think her whole storyline feels pretty like contrived. Like it was resolved so easily that it does feel like very frustrating, where it's like, Mandy, why didn't you do this freaking like 300 years ago or whenever? Like, but
yeah.
Or like there's so many other fairies that we don't even know about who are just like living their normal lives. Like any of them could have done this at any point, and she was like, "No magic one fairy does to another is small magic." And it's like, why don't you do something sooner, all you lazy bums? But it's like it does. That part feels like very like frustrating, very like, ugh, this is so like it's just for like plot convenience.
Yeah.
But like the part of like Ella having this like curse on her is like such a like an integral part to the story. Like it is the whole story that like you kind of just I feel like I kind of just have to be like, oh well, this is how it is. But like Lucinda's storyline is like pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
Keisha's laughing about Julius Caesared her.
I mean, that's my biggest argument. She's the worst, and I'm surprised no one's taken her out before the events of this book. But I do agree that there has to be some sort of suspension of disbelief in terms of her storyline. But I really do hate her when she like learns about all of the terrible things she did. She like lived her life out as a squirrel and all that stuff. And she's like, yeah, that sucks. Good luck with that. And then just doesn't undo any of the stuff she does. Like, oh God.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know. It's like the curse on Ella, I guess, can be broken by like her fixing it herself. But like these other people, like how do you uncurse yourself from being a squirrel? Like how do you break a curse of being like tied to the person that you're married to? Like how do you like break these other ones? Like even hers was really hard to break, and I feel like it's one of the easiest to break out of all of them. Like Lucinda should have like stepped up and been accountable, but she wasn't. She was just like, oh, sucks to suck. Like, which is so frustrating. Lucinda's gross. Like at least she does have some, but like it was like not done well. But I must say it's done well better than the movie, which we haven't brought up that.
I was watching this sort of like comparison between the book and the movie, and I forgot how different they were in that this book doesn't have Elton John or Queen in it.
No.
Which they do in the movie.
Oh, were you watching Dominic?
Yes, yeah, I was watching that video.
Yeah, that's a really good book to movie review in case anyone is interested. His YouTube name used to be The Dom, but now it's something.
Dominic Noble or something.
Dominic Noble, that's it. He changed it to his name because he was like, the Dom has other connotations, which I didn't intend. I'm gonna
which he
rebrand.
didn't think about, but yeah, I mean the movie is atrocious, and honestly I appreciate the book so much more because I haven't read it since I saw the movie because I just couldn't deal after seeing the movie. But I think this book is so smart and so great for young kids opposed to the other one, which is
The worst.
you know, yeah. Although they kept up with Lucinda being the worst, so I guess that's fine.
But she has like no character growth in the movie whatsoever. Whereas like in this one, like she does grow, but I do like that like even though she's like renounced big magic, that she's not all of a sudden like not doing any magic. That she's still like, this is small magic, pumpkins and like stuff. Like I think it's very in character for her and was a fun way for Gail Carson Levine to like tie in more of the Cinderella elements.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share on Lucinda?
Yeah.
Kara?
I'm sorry. First off, this is not a good day for tech, as Taylor said. But yeah, about Lucinda, like I agree that her arc sort of resolves pretty easily, but like Giselle said, I like that she's still got that spark of like who she is. Like she's not gonna stop making like ridiculous gowns and like she still feels like herself. So I like that. The thing that I found kind of frustrating, and I feel like even when I was younger, I remember being a little annoyed by this. But for some reason this time it especially bugged me, was like Mandy's whole like not doing big magic rule, which I understand. I do get it. It's like I feel like it's this like idea of responsibility. Is like if you cause something to happen, then are you responsible for everything after it? So I get that. But when she refuses to do things like giving her a magic umbrella because that's too big of magic or something, or like when she refuses, what's the other one she did that I thought was just like ridiculous? Oh, she wouldn't pack for her by magic because nothing is big magic at a moment like this. Like I don't know, I found that kind of frustrating, and I understand like theoretically that you have to have like some kind of hard and fast rule, or you're always going to feel like you could like weasel your way into feeling like it's okay. But yeah, that was just something that really bothered me this time around, and I know that a certain amount of it is necessary for the plot, but yeah. So those were like my other thoughts on like the fairy characters in general. But I do love Mandy. Like she's a great character. I just like was a little frustrated by her morals at times.
What's the point of you being a fairy?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least she's very consistent though. She's never like flip-floppy. Which is good because I feel like that just happens way too much in books. And I don't feel like any of the characters in this one are like flip-floppy. All of them are like pretty like set in their own characters, and like they may grow and develop, but it's never like outside of their personality.
Yeah. I will say I didn't remember the dad being as awful as he was. And I don't know, I guess I remembered him being like absent or neglectful, but I didn't remember him like trying to pimp his daughter out to like a 40-year-old man. I forgot about that scene. And then he drugged her.
Yeah.
I
know.
Like, oh my god.
Worst. He did not get his comeuppance. He needed a harsher punishment.
Yeah. I hated her dad so much. Like
yeah.
And like when her mother dies and he's just like not bothered, he's like, oh, she was beautiful. Bummer. Like terrible. Yeah.
I don't know how I forgot that scene, or I guess I didn't think about it or block it out, but I was so grossed out.
Yeah, it's like the secondhand embarrassment when she's like flirting with that like old man who looks like a basset hound. Yeah. I did not enjoy that.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I guess I always like drowned that out as a kid, or like never thought about it enough. But like it's really effed up. Like he's the actual worst dad. Like he is very neglectful, but he like he only cares about, and it is consistent like through as his personality as well, but he only cares about other people as it can benefit him. Just
And he still got an invitation to her and Char's wedding, which shocked me.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why
Maybe
she
everyone
like
was invited.
maintains a relationship with him.
Yeah.
I
know.
hope not.
I don't really understand that either.
But she does, and it says like Char like continues to like watch out for him and make sure he doesn't get in too much trouble in the future and stuff. And it's like maybe take away him being like, what is he again?
A
Trader,
merchant?
merchant, yeah.
A merchant. There we go. I was thinking like peddler, and I'm like, he's not quite a peddler. He's a,
Yeah.
he's a merchant.
He's a con artist.
Yeah.
He is.
No,
Like,
I
He
don't
stole
know
a
how
home
to
he didn't
revoke
own.
that.
Yes. And then he acts like so sad. Like they took all my wealth, and I'm like, because you're an idiot and a terrible human being. Like and now you like screwed Ella over and like everyone else who lives and works with you because you and like here's the thing is there was no reason for him to do this. He was already rich. Like he made a lot of money selling things that he did own. There was no point for him to scam them like that. Like I don't know.
I do think it's really interesting, and I don't know, maybe I just feel like it's really weird that Eleanor is a courtier, yet she's married to a merchant. Those things seem like so like vastly different, and like I get that she like comes from like a wealthier background and her parents were like very like wealthy and nobility, but you think that she would kind of like lose that status when she married below her station, but yet she's still accepted at court.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Anyway,
I took it as more of like a courtesy, like, you know, we'll extend you an invitation because you used to be like welcome at court or something.
Yeah, but like even to her, I mean, she must have been like in her 40s when she dies. Like she was always still like accepted by court at court, and like everybody knew her and stuff. And like, so, like it seems like she never like lost any of that by like marrying a merchant. And it is bizarre that like since they were so wealthy, he like continued to work. Like you think the kind of person is he's like being always wanting other people to benefit himself and always using other people to benefit himself, that he continued to be such a hard worker, even though in a very sleazy and effed up way. But he's like a very hard worker and is like constantly on the road and stuff and doing stuff,
He's
even though
also
he's
very
more than wealthy enough.
Yeah, but he's also extremely greedy. So I kind of got the feeling it would never be enough for him to feel like, oh, I don't need any more riches, you know? But you mentioned like how unequal Eleanor and his marriage is, like, or like their class differences, which they do talk about a little bit. But I kind of, because I think you have a good point about her still being welcome at court when normally that she'd probably be like, you're okay, shunned, you know, you're not like in the inner circle anymore. But I kind of got the feeling that the classes in this world are a little bit softened from a lot of fantasy worlds. Like money definitely matters and position matters, and it obviously comes up a lot with like Char being the prince. But it didn't seem like they were as hard and fast as they sometimes are. Like even with Ella, like there's a few references to the fact that like, oh, she's spending time with the prince, like that's kind of unusual, but it's never like, oh, he shouldn't even be talking to her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
And like the prince is out and about at like a lot of common places where people would be, like the zoo and stuff, just hanging out, you know.
Just chilling.
Oh gosh. I actually freaking, moving the topic along, I really, really love the magical menagerie. And I think the choices that she made with it are super interesting, where it's like ogres are very humanoid and intelligent, where like I feel like in other things, other media and other like books and stuff, even like Harry Potter and things, like the trolls are like really stupid and like idiotic and all these things, but they're very intelligent in this, where centaurs are basically just like horses and or even stupider than horses, where in like other media and stuff they're very intelligent and like it's very interesting. Like she made some very like unusual choices, and I just thought that was really bizarre. That like he's like, oh, I'm gonna give you like a centaur as like a present, and it's like, but I guess it's an animal, so I guess it's not that weird. But it looks like a human. Like that's weird.
I had kind of the same reaction. Like there's this offhand reference to the fact that like, oh, he's not big enough to carry a rider yet, and I'm like, you can't ride a centaur, like. Because I was thinking, like you said, of like all these other media where centaurs are like these very wise and like noble creatures, and like you would never, like a human could never ride one, and it's like, oh yeah, he's like a donkey basically.
Yeah. Or if they're allowed to be ridden, then it's very like.
It's an honor.
Should feel very honored, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think in like Chronicles of Narnia and like the second one, like they let Caspian ride the centaur. One of the centaurs lets Caspian ride him, and he's like, I'll let you, like, but only because you're a prince.
Yeah. I will say this was a good example of how I could see centaurs being how they exist in Artemis Fowl, and that they are very tiny. Because there's something just a little haunting about like a centaur that's like your height, and they have like a humanoid torso, but they're less intelligent than a horse.
Yeah.
Like that's a little weird to own.
It's really weird, and yeah, I wish that, I don't know. I kind of wish that was like all delved into more, but like it's a kid's book. I get that we can't, and like it's such a short book. Like there's so much in this book for how short it is.
Yeah, I would say Gail Carson Levine is really good at writing like pretty concisely.
She's super snappy. She is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we should talk about. Well, I guess Kara already talked about Mandy, but did you have any other thoughts on her, Taylor?
No, I mean I liked her well enough. I did get a little frustrated with her sometimes because like things could be solved a little easier. Like when she served Eleanor's mom the soup, why didn't she say, make sure to drink that unicorn hair or whatever? That's going to be the thing that makes you better, because then maybe she wouldn't have plucked it out of the soup. But, you know, I guess that would have been too easy. And then the thing like an umbrella is big magic, or packing your bag is big magic. You know, stuff like that got on my nerves, but I liked her. It's just little stuff like that kind of grates on me a bit.
Yeah. I like her, but I feel like she doesn't overall, like when I was done with the book, like she doesn't stand out that much to me. I guess because even then, she's like not in the book for like half of it still. Like, well, Ella's away and stuff, so she doesn't stand out as much, but I do enjoy her, but she does get very frustrating when she's like so like strict on all the stuff, but I do enjoy their relationship a lot, and I really like her relationship with the parrot, and everything. And Mandy, like Ella does say that she's like, oh, I've never heard Mandy be sarcastic before, but I'm like, she's like sarcastic all the time and is like so sassy. She's like really sassy, and she's like, I'm cook to a parrot, what the heck, and like all this stuff, and like it's very ridiculous all the time.
Yeah.
But
I remembered liking Mandy more than I did this time, or like she made more of an impression on me before, because I kind of had a similar feeling after finishing of like I liked her, but she did frustrate me a lot, and I didn't understand a lot of the choices she made. Yeah, like the soup thing. Like I think that might be one of the reasons why Ella Enchanted was never as much my favorite as Two Princesses, is because you start off the book with something that pisses me off. So like just because like that's such a little thing for like all these disasters to start happening, and like I just think about like how wonderful it would have been for Ella if like her mom had been alive and like her dad, her like terrible father wasn't the one in charge, and just like so many things would have gone better if her mom had been alive. But I mean, I guess like I guess it's hard to say that because like then other parts of the story wouldn't have happened, but it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
That's really funny because like all of Two Princesses of Bamar really pisses me off. Like that whole book, I hate it.
Then it's good we're not reading it. I love it with my whole heart and soul.
It's like everything from the beginning to the very end of that book like makes me angry. It's like I couldn't even get through my reread of that last year. Like I tried to reread it and I was like, oh, I'm so angry. And I like stopped it, like no joke, like 30 pages from the end because I know what's gonna happen. I don't want to read that. It's so dramatic. Okay, so other thoughts on Ella Enchanted. I think we should talk. I know we already talked about it a bit, but I just want to talk about the ending a little bit more. Yes, what?
Sorry, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I will bring up my mini rant later.
Wait,
go ahead.
Rant? No, say it.
Okay, it does have one of my least favorite ideas of. Okay, so the fact that Ella refuses the title of princess but adopts the titles of court linguist and cook's helper. You can be a princess too, girl. Yeah. And I hate this sort of backlash against the whole like princess idea because in my mind it's like it's feminine, therefore it is less than. And I hate that trope. And I'm like, girl, you can be the court linguist, the cook's helper, and a princess. Like, yeah. One doesn't negate the other. So that did kind of piss me off a bit. Yeah.
Well, like I noticed the same thing, and it reminded me a lot of Cimarine from
Yes, I was thinking that.
Which I really like her, but that is another series where like last time I reread it, maybe that's when it was, or maybe I was talking about it for something else. But like I kind of was realizing like everyone who's not a tomboy is like a terrible person. Or you know, it's like all of the except for Eleonora, who's in the first book. But after that, it's pretty much like if you see a really feminine girl, she's gonna be a bad guy or she's gonna be stupid. And there's like no in between or like nothing different from that. So yeah, like and I think with Cimarine, it doesn't bother me as much her whole title thing because we see that like from the beginning, the idea of princess is like a very specific thing. And it makes sense why she wouldn't want to like take that. And there's also the discussion of like the king of the dragons and how that can be a male or a female dragon and like stuff like that. So I feel like it fits. But with this, it's kind of like out of the blue. Ella's like, everyone knows princesses are useless, so I'm going to be something different. And I'm like, well, good luck like making decrees or like helping people in the world when you're just the linguist or something.
I don't think that's necessarily true though. Like I don't even think that it's necessarily that she like thinks that princesses are useless or whatever, but I feel like it is very in character for Ella to not want that title just because I feel like it would be uncomfortable for her. I think any sort of royalty would make her uncomfortable because she did grow up very like unorthodox and very like off like the grid and like didn't grow up in the court and stuff. So even though she has learned this stuff being older and stuff, that it's still not what she wants.
Yeah, I guess I also feel like it's a little weird that it, like instead of the prince and the princess being in charge, it's like the prince and this random girl who's a linguist, and then you find out like, oh yeah, well she is married to the prince. Oh, so she's the princess. Like, well, no, not really.
Yeah, there's like an insinuated power imbalance. The thing is, I would want this. Like, you'd want the same title. Like, she doesn't have to be, like, a stereotypical princess. Like, she can still do the stuff she does and have those titles and also be a princess. And I feel like if it were Ella's, like, idea, like, she didn't want to order people around or she was uncomfortable with that role, it would have been reflected on just a little more in the book. To me, it felt like Gail Carson Levine sort of, like, wedging her way in there and going, like, girl power, I did it. You know?
Yeah. Especially because, like, the other royals that we see are really good people. Like, I mean, obviously Char we see a lot of, but, like, even his parents, like Queen Daria, she's barely in it. She gets, like, 3 lines, but she's really likable. And he
embarrasses him?
Yeah! She's great. But, like, you kind of get the feeling that, like, she is a good ruler, and, like, she talks about how she travels with the king and everything, and I don't know, it seemed weird because like it's not like this is a world that has been set up as a place where the wrong people are in charge, you know, like so yeah, I also felt like it was a little bit jarring to have Ella suddenly be like, well, I don't want to be associated with this, and it's like, why? Like, you're marrying one of them. Like,
yeah. And then there was a little side note like, oh, and I never stayed home with their kids when Prince Char was traveling. I went with him, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, but it felt like I have nothing against it, but that's what I felt also added to the whole like girl power message at the end. Like, oh, she's not a stay-at-home mom and she's not a princess. She's his cook.
Also, like, I have to feel maybe this was like before Char actually took over as king, but I kind of like read that part and I'm like, so if something happens to you guys, your kids are orphans, like, and they've lost their 2 leaders. Like,
that's why the president and vice president are never in the same space or rarely in the same spot.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I understand where they're coming from, and I do think it makes sense for Ella. It's like, yeah, she would never stay at home. But it is kind of funny that the way it's written is like, this is an unequivocally good thing. Like, everyone should do this. And I'm like, kind of hard on your kids. Like,
it's fine, kids. We've got a magic book.
Yeah. I do love that magic book, though.
I do. It's like a way to get tea without anyone knowing there's tea.
Yeah, okay. So this is relevant because I actually had to read a library copy this time, even though I might actually own 2 copies of this book. Anyway, I like can't get to most of my books right now, and I seriously miscalculated when I would be able to get to them again. So hence I got one from the library. And the edition I got from the library has all this like bonus material in the back. And Gail Carson Levine basically says that. She's like, I wanted the magic book because I wanted the reader to know stuff they couldn't just tell them. And I thought that was so great. I'm like, I love that. I love when you're the author and you have the power to just be like, we're going to have a magic book now because I want you to know this information. Like, it really was. It was just for the tea. Yeah.
Exactly. It was a really great workaround.
Yeah, I love that it like has its own personality too, though. That it's like looking out for her, and it's like, life of the centaur tick. What the heck are you reading? Life cycles of the centaur tick. That's what it is.
Yeah,
life cycles of the centaur tick.
Yeah, much better than the movie where it's just a man and a book.
We do not speak of the movie.
Oh man. Oh gosh. Sorry, were you gonna say something else, Taylor?
Oh, I was just going to say, Keisha wrote, you just know people are gossiping about how the princess doesn't want to be called one. And I was like, yeah, I'm one of the people.
It's like, you never know. She's too good to rule us.
Once Char becomes king, you never know. She might have accepted the role of queen at that point, but she might have just needed time to like work up to it as well.
Yeah.
Like she went from thinking that she would like basically never see Char again to being married to him in like a month. So like she might have just like felt very uncomfortable like accepting that title right away, and like in the future she might like accept it. You never know. Or write a fan fiction about how she when she becomes queen.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also, I'm very title focused. Like I want the princess title. I want people to know I'm the princess. I want people to know that my man is a prince. I'd be flaunting that.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this more too, because I have a friend, actually it's Jocelyn, from your book. She's talked about how she really doesn't like royalty focused fantasy, which I totally understand. Like she's like, it makes me uncomfortable to read about people who it's like, we're just supposed to believe that they're the best person in charge just because like, there's a reason we got rid of the monarchy kind of thing. Yeah. And I totally get that. But I've been thinking about it more. And I think the reason I do like royalty based fantasy is because a lot of times at least in good ones, in good fantasy, it's like you're seeing that you're seeing them become worthy of being the rulers. And so it always kind of, it always kind of feels like if you're reading a book where the royals are good people and then somebody doesn't want, like somebody like rejects that, you're kind of like, well, why? Like, why are you, why do you not want to be part of this when we spent a whole book liking them? And I don't know. It seems like Ella could do a lot more good if she did kind of take on more of that like professional role. I don't know, because we never really see like when she's agonizing over what she's going to do about Char, or even before that when she's just realizing that she really likes him, she never has a like, oh, I could never be queen, like that would be way too much for me. Like she never really thinks about that. It's just later that it comes up as like, oh, but I would never be called princess. Like also like what are her kids going to be called then? I assume they're going to be princes and princesses.
The royal lad.
The royal children.
The royal offspring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the ending a little bit, I just want to talk about, again, just like, I know Kara kind of talked about it earlier, but I just love her scene at the end and her internal struggle and stuff. That's definitely always been one of my absolute favorite parts. And it's actually the first part of the book that I actually ever read was that very ending scene, because my sister and I, we had bunk beds, and sometimes we'd sleep in the same bed, just like because it was like having a sleepover. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so she was listening to the book, and she had gotten it from the library. She was listening to it, and she like was listening to. We were on the last disc of it, and she fell asleep. She had played it while as we were falling asleep on like the same bunk, and she fell asleep, and I stayed up and I finished listening to the book. And so like that's like the last part I heard, and I like was so in love with the ending that like the next day I like immediately went back and like read the whole thing and like loved it. And I don't know, I just like I love that. I love how selfish she needed to be at the end, and the whole book, I guess, like up to that point, like even though she's a very kind and loving person and she does really care about other people, she's so like self focused the whole time. I don't want to say that she's self-centered, because she's not, but she does constantly think about herself.
Yeah.
And even though she doesn't necessarily go like woe is me, she does feel very sorry for herself all the time, like with good reason. But I love that like at the end that she can do it for other people, and it's not, if even if it was just for Char, like I don't think it would have been enough, but that it's like for her whole country, for helping everyone, that she was able to like break the curse. And I just like love her internal dialogue and everything in that moment. I just like has always just really resounded to
Yeah.
me. And then also like leading up to that, I just like love all the scenes like with the ball and with them and like everything. Like I just like love the whole freaking thing, but like that ending is just like always packed such a punch for me personally.
And I was gonna say that too, is I love that it's not just, she doesn't just do it for Char, even though that is important. It's also for her country and for everyone who lives there. It's like she doesn't, it's not just like oh, true love fixed everything. It was like caring about people in all kinds of ways is what broke it. Yeah, I really love that scene. It's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, it's good. Very emotionally powerful.
And it's so well earned too. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is so
Yeah.
effective, is because like you've had this whole book of her trying to break the curse in all these different ways, like fighting against it, struggling against it, really like obsessing over it for good reason, like Giselle said. Like it makes sense why she's always thinking about this. And then it comes down to the end of the book, and it's, in a way, it's such a simple thing, but it's like so like well described, and like you really feel like you've gone through it with her, so you're like ready, like it's believable that she can suddenly make up her mind and break the spell, because like you've been there the whole time.
Yeah,
If that made sense.
it does. And yeah, the ending is just, it's so good. It's like one of my favorite scenes in any book ever. Like I just I love it all. It makes me very happy, and it is like so powerful. And I think it's such a good message for kids as well, where it's like I was like 7 the first time I read this book, and like it's so like, even though it is a love story and it is on like kids fiction, I don't necessarily love stories in kids fiction very often. Like she is older, so it's okay, but like that it's not like, yeah, like true love fixes everything and stuff, and that like she grows as her own developed person, and then she builds a relationship and off of that with someone else, and that it's not like they're fixing each other, they just get along really well together, they have a really strong relationship. But that she's, even though their relationship is really important to her, that it's not just like about the guy, it's about her beliefs and her feelings and her country and other things that are important to her as well, is what they needed. And like even like saving like one other person wasn't enough, like with like the gnomish kid at the beginning, like there needed to be more. So I just love that. um yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, I know we have to wrap this up for Kara, but does
Yeah,
anyone
I'm
else
sorry.
have any other thoughts?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. You know, it's a great book. Lots of good lessons, and I love it. It's really good.
Great, I'm glad we reread this. So we will post a date on Twitter. I don't think we're going to decide that right now, our next one, but the next book we're going to be reading is Fairest, which is a Snow White retelling. I think it came out in 2006, so it came out like a long time after this one. Like she waited like 10 years or something to write this. But it's like a companion novel, if you're not aware, that is set in a Yortha, and it actually follows Arita's little sister, I believe. It's her sister, but I think it's her little sister, and it's one of the cleverest Snow White retellings I've ever read, I must say. So we're really excited about that. It will be sometime in November that we talk about it, but we will give dates on Twitter. And I think that's everything that needs to be said. Thanks for joining us. Love this book. And yeah, I think that's everything. So we will see you next month. Bye, everyone.
I have to give my sister her computer back. So.
Okay.